All right, I wanted to share with you something that will be very helpful to you. It's free for you to do, but it will absolutely give you some really critical information about that will help you plan for your Social Security and sort of what your election options are, and ultimately everything from spousal benefits to individual benefits. So we will take a quick look at that now. All right. So there is this website that you can go to. And I want to make sure you're aware of what the URL is here. And so feel free to go to that URL and you will get access to this free system that will give you all the information and more of what you need to do. Right. And so I'm gonna just kind of show you a little bit. I have one kind of set up. So all you do is you click on this Get Started. You provide some basic information about yourself, and you get kind of registered. All of this is free. And when you do that, you're going to get access to some things. And I want to show you what you're going to get access to right now. So what you're going to get access to is this great set of reporting. This is about you, specifically about you. So I have a couple example people here, Siraj and Anita. Ultimately, there's a bunch of these really cool calculators that are going to give you interesting information, but I'll just kind of show you. You can kind of look and see what your ultimate lifetime benefits are going to be, what your annual benefits are going to be, what your monthly benefits are going to be at different combinations of events, right? So like if Anita was at full retirement and Siraj made it to 70, they're going to get a payment of 94.72. It will also tell you what the best payment they could possibly get is, right? Two working spouses, best payment's going to be 70 and 70 at 10,389. Pretty good for these two. That gives them over $120,000 a year, right? So that's pretty great. So that is one component. You can as well start to take a look at, given sort of the different age scenarios, when will you start to make more money than the early selection? So you can see there was an early selection here of age 65 and 62, which is the green line. And you can see, as we've talked about before, at around age 80, the green line starts to be the worst option, right? So that's again something to be aware of. There's a great tax calculator here that can give you some idea based on what your post-retirement adjusted gross income is and how much of your Social Security will be taxable. For those of us who don't have a lot of income coming in, that'll be zero. But at certain sort of thresholds, you will start to see some tax implications, right? And that your Social Security can become taxable. So something to take a look at. But I think the biggest and best thing to be aware of is this report that comes from this. And again, this is 100% free. No, you're not being charged anything for this. It just requires you to give information to the system. This is proprietary information. No one's going to be aware of your information, other than the RSSA organization. And but what this does is give you a report. It gives you a lot of the pieces we just talked about, but it gives you an understanding of sort of where you're going to make your money and how you're going to make your money, right? And you can see there's a lot of power of sort of knowing where that is. One person may be willing to work a little bit longer, the other person may not. So you kind of can get a feel for sort of where you're going to make that decision, right? And you get a look at that on an annual basis and a monthly basis. You can look at a comparison of all your options that you provided. These are not things that we're dictating to you. You basically said, here are the options. We'll give you 3 options to look at, and then we calculate the maximum, right? So that's the 4th option. Then the question becomes around, when should people file? What are the filing steps? What are the rules? So I highly recommend you do that. And then what happens if you put in sort of life expectancy? And so in this case, we put in that Anita was going to live longer than Suraj. And so we see that at different options, the the survivor benefit is going to be much better, right? You can see that in the earlier election periods, the number was quite low, it was much lower, it was about $13,000 a year lower, and in the options where they waited, it's probably going to be full retirement, they got the maximum, right? And so just be aware of that. And then, you kind of factor all of that in to a lifetime benefit. You think about survivorship and you think about your individual benefits. And it looks like in this scenario, which is kind of very interesting, that it doesn't make sense for them to both wait till 70 because their maximum benefit is when Suraj waits till 70 and Anita goes at 66, right? So that's she could, if she kind of listened to the advice that's out in the world today, she might have said, well, I'm going to wait till 70. And in that case, she actually loses money. They actually lose lifetime benefits. And she also loses 4 years of freedom from a job, right? And so something to think about. But again, I want you to be aware of the scenario analysis capability here, because it's very, very powerful. And then a lot of people want to know about their earning record. So this is some detail that you're gonna load into the system based on your SSA.gov account, and it's going to allow you to see kind of the details of your earnings, how they're grossed up. Remember, we talked about up until age 60, they're generally grossed up based on to account for inflation. And so even though the amount earned may or may not have been what was state, I mean, like these amounts are going to be kind of grossed up to kind of the future amount. And you can kind of take a look at all the different options again and kind of look in the detail of all these options and how they're kind of calculated, what portions of the payment is going to come from to Suraj, what's going to come from Anita, what's going to come in the form of a survivorship benefit. And you can kind of see for each of the options what the detail is around that. And the thing that I really like is as well is a lot of people want to know, well, how do they calculate my Social Security? So, if we look at this, you're going to see that you're going to see all of your earnings as they were earned in the dollar in those historical dollar amounts. Then you're going to see that there is an indexed amount that's going to basically index that amount upward to current dollars, right? And so, you may have only earned 42,500, but we look at that as 150,569 in current available dollars, right? And so you look at that, it'll give you your top 35 years of earnings, and that's what we're looking at here is the top 35 years of earnings. You're going to get all the calculations for how that amount is calculated. So it looks like their earnings are indexed up to about 7.2 million, which gives them an average index monthly earning of 17,270, which I've talked about in other videos. And that is the number we're going to use to figure out their payment, right? And so I think we've talked about this before. There's some portion of that payment that you get 90% of. So if you take that 17,270, you see that you're going to get that full 90% of the 1226. And then if you look at the amount between 1226 and 7391, well, 17,000 is more than that. So they're going to get the full 6165. You get 32% of that. And then everything after 7391. So it looks like there's roughly $9,879 of that. You're going to get 15%. So this is how Suraj's payment is calculated to 45558. You can look at those numbers and be aware of that. I think this is Suraj, right? Yeah. So, I think it gives you a lot of really good information. And then You can talk a little bit about, there's some more, oh, then we get into Anita's situation. But, so this gives you kind of the detail and really gets down to sort of the reality of all your numbers. Again, this is free to you. There is no charge. And if after you've received the report, you will want to you want someone from RSSA to walk you through it and talk about it, that's certainly an option. I do it, and I do it. I give you a kind of a free assessment on how to do that and sort of what the implications are to you. So again, this whole process end to end costs you nothing to do, other than your time and your energy, and it ultimately ends up with a lot of good data, and then you get a kind of an assessment from me or from someone else that will tell you ultimately what this ultimately means. All right, any questions, please reach out. I will make sure this is in the comments so you know how to get to it, but I highly recommend this taking a look at this.